All right, and I would invite you to take your Bibles. We're going to go to the book of Proverbs, chapter 19. We start in Proverbs 19 tonight, making our way through this verse by verse. I pray that y'all are deriving as much benefit and even, dare I say, enjoyment out of our study here in Proverbs. Uh, I'm I'm totally stoked almost every night when I get up. I was looking at a picture on my phone last night, and Heather came to the room. I said, "You ever just look at a picture on your phone and just are so happy at just like looking at the picture?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "And just disappointed that nobody else cares as much as you." And she said, "Yeah." I don't know that y'all don't care as much as I do, but I am just so excited. Literally every service after I spend a couple of hours preparing between 10 verses and so just for what God has for us here, and really just trying to stir up our pure minds by way of remembrance. I look around, I know a lot of y'all, if not all the time, on pretty frequent occasions, spend a lot of time in the book of Proverbs. I know there's nothing I can tell y'all hardly about a verse that is going to be that original necessarily, but I do want it to be just really reminding us, right? Just reminding us of really basic things in our life to help us be better people, right? Better Christians, better followers of God. It's just real practical areas, and we need to be reminded. I think especially if we cover, maybe not if we cover 4 verses, but if we cover up to 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 verses, it's hard to believe that there's not going to be something every week that we can say, yeah, I could probably do a little bit better there, right? And being kind of nice to ourselves. And we need to be reminded of these things. They were talking today at work and mentioned some of it, but just this week, we only worked 3 days this week. In 3 weeks, we had like 10 first aids for heat-related illnesses, and 2 people left the plant, ambulance-type level stuff. And I mean, and it's hot outside, right? Like we all know that, and they talk about it all the time. But people still mess up, right? And aren't paying attention, dotting their I's and crossing their T's. And that's really what the book of Proverbs ought to be doing. It's kind of like a weekly safety meeting, right? So I already know all this stuff. Well, are you doing it? Are you practicing it? Are you exercising everything you know? I would just take a few moments backing up to chapter 18, just kind of a running head start, reviewing a few things that we looked at last week. We began in verse 20 and 21, kind of combine those 2 verses together. I don't want to rehash everything, but I would simply reiterate here that the words that we speak basically build a context that you have to live in. I think there's proof of that in all of our lives. The Bible says it. If you use words that are harsh and mean and condescending and sarcastic and biting and hateful and bitter, that's the world you're going to have to live in. And it talks about in verse number 21 that death and life are in the power of the tongue. And so the words that we speak matter. This is a hammer, or it's something that Proverbs hammers often. It's not a hammer. It's something that Proverbs hammers often. And I dare say that you could live to be 1,000 years old and you'd probably still have trouble controlling your tongue, at times at least. And so this is something we need to think about. And really, to maybe kind of personalize it, the concept of when my mouth gets away with me, it no doubt it hurts other people at times, but it also hurts me, right? There's negative consequences in my own life. We looked at verse number 22 just a few moments there about whoso findeth a wife findeth a good thing and obtaineth the favor of the Lord. Spent a few minutes talking about the benefit a woman could bring to the life of a man, positive aspects of it, and really the fact that this is from God. If you have a good wife, if you found that, this is God smiling upon you. We looked at verse number 23 about how the poor uses entreaties, and just the lower station a man has, the nicer they have to be when they are talking to a person. Talking about sowing yourself friendly, right? I challenged you last week. Does anybody remember the challenge? I'll give you this. Think of the most friendly person you know. In church, out of church, is somebody that's just friendly, right? And then think about it. What makes this person friendly? And can I imitate that in my own life? Is there anything I can do there? That does bring us to chapter 19. Got 10 verses ready. We'll see how many we get through this evening. But let's start in verse number 1 where it talks about the specificity of poverty. Better is the poor that walketh in his integrity than he that is perverse in his lips and is a fool. It is a difficult verse to read. And just in general, when it says better is the poor, because it's very easy for us in our very well taken care of society to say there's a lot of things better in being poor, right? And we don't associate that normally with being poor, but he really draws an important contrast. And when I was going through it, I noticed this contrast that he's drawing, because let's do a word association. All right? I'm going to say a word, and you give me the opposite of it. Right? It's not that good. Okay, right. Rich, poor. Let me do it the other way. Poor. Right. So that would be kind of the expected contrast to talking about poor. But if you look at the verse, we read it, it doesn't even talk about rich people in this verse. You see that? Better is the poor that walketh in his integrity than he that is perverse in his lips and is a fool. It's not even being contrasted. It's just saying who you are as a person matters. This is really the takeaway. Integrity is free. It doesn't cost anything to be a person of integrity. Our project manager, he emphasizes, and rightfully so, and a lot of times it has to do with safety, is what you do when nobody else is looking, right? It's that rule of if you have to look up to see if anybody's watching you, you probably shouldn't be. I say probably. I'm being generous, right? You should not be doing that, right? Because if it was okay to do it, you wouldn't care who was watching. Your safety man, your project manager, marathon, whoever, wherever you work, could be standing right there, and you'd be perfectly okay. It doesn't cost anything. Integrity is free. But on another token, you realize, really, when it comes down to it, you don't get to choose how much money you have, right? I mean, you can work hard. I'm not saying that's to be discounted, but generally speaking, we all have a cap, and it's pretty low, right? Like there's just only so much money most of us are ever going to have any access to. But so even though you don't really get to choose, I mean, because let's be honest, even if you consider yourself to be well taken care of, who couldn't do with another $10,000 a year, right? Like, I mean, I could always use a little bit more. I got something I'd like to do, right? Whatever the case may be. So. And I've wished for $10,000 more a year, and here I am without 10. Right, we understand. We don't get to really choose that, but you do get to choose to do what's right, no matter how much money you have. And this is important because I think that I'm going to use the term poor people, and we could go into that. And I don't want to get sidetracked on it. I don't think I want to get sidetracked on it. I'm just using that term in general because poor people, and you can think yourself as poor, you can think other people are poor, can tend to think, well, I don't have any choice. I'm stuck with bad decisions. And that may be true, but what I'm saying is even as a poor person, you can always do what's right. You can always pick the best. And even as I was studying, I may have this mentioned here. Yeah, I do have it later on, but I'll go ahead and hit it a lick here. If you made bad decisions to become poor, you should probably start by correcting those decisions before we start working on anything else. So there's not even contrast between rich and wealthy. It's really contrasted with perversity. I looked up the word perversity. If it says, better is the poor that walketh in his integrity, it's this idea of just doing the right thing no matter what. It's not a standard you're being held to by someone else. It's a standard you hold yourself to, right? We don't look around and say, what can I get away with? We ought to look around and say, what should I be doing? That's integrity. I'm holding myself to a standard. It says, then he that is perverse in his lips is a fool. The word perverse means twistedness, crookedness, distortion, crooked dealing, and obviously he's tying it directly to our speech here. So perverse man bends the truth instead of speaking plainly. A crooked man, his speech is not upright and honest. He's deceptive, manipulating with words. His mouth reveals a heart that's not straight. And I just want to reiterate this right here. It doesn't cost anything to do what's right. Wherever you're faced with, whatever circumstance you're in, whatever the context of the question is, you can always do what's right. And it doesn't take money to do that. Maybe I could just be completely honest. It may cost you money at times, but it doesn't take money to do what's right. And that's really what to do. Poverty is no excuse for making bad decisions. Listen, you could probably compromise your morals and your ethics and get more money. It's not that hard to do. You probably know people that have done it. You can probably see people that have done it. And it's not worth compromising what you know to be right for a few more dollars in the bank. The Bible's saying being poor is better than getting gain in that way. Look at verse 2 and 3. And we've entitled verses 2 and 3, It Is Not Good. And then we're going to kind of come back when we get to verse 7, Lord willing. But look at verses 2 and 3 with me. And he says also. Let me stop right there. We're going to preach on also for a few minutes, right? And so this is one place I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I am no closer to coming to an answer or a conclusion than I was when I first started thinking about it. But how was Proverbs compiled? Like, I'm just curious about it. Did somebody write it down, or did Solomon just sit down one day and say, it is better to dwell in the corner of a housetop than in a White House with a brawling woman, right? Was he, something came up and he said, somebody bring me a pen and a piece of paper. This calls for a proverb, right? Like, I'm not sure how all of this worked out. I think that, and y'all been with me for every verse, right? So you understand and can see the eclectic nature of some of it. It's like, it's like, if you ever driven a manual car, it's like going from first to sixth to reverse to third, right? It's just like feels like no rhyme or reason. But every once in a while, he ties stuff together. Also, that the soul be without money is not good. Now, I look around at most of y'all know that don't even sound biblical, right? We know that's not the case, right? So it's that the soul be without knowledge. It is not good. He that hasteth with his feet sinneth. Let me ask you another question. You don't have to answer. I just want you to think about it. Because as I come to verse number 2, I see the contrast or the connection being drawn. I'm going to use the phrase, doesn't make sense on the face of it. Like it's introducing a, not irony, maybe that's the right word for it. But if I ask you, where does knowledge reside at? I think that outside of this verse, you may say something like in your mind, right? It's kind of in the, your knowledge is something you have in your head, right? Just kind of on it, prima facie, right? Like it's like initial reaction. But it says that the soul be without knowledge, it is not good. So he ties something that I think we would normally kind of put up in our head, and he ties it directly to our souls. And I think this is interesting because, and he says it's not good. So one thing is, whenever the Bible tells us something is straight up not good, I feel like this is worth taking note of and paying attention to. So it said it is not good that the soul be without knowledge. And really, I think it's this question right here. I said, why putting it into the soul instead of the head? Because there are such a thing as smart, foolish people, right? Have a lot of head knowledge. Smart, if I just making stuff up, engineers and chemists and doctors and lawyers, they know all of this stuff, but they're a liar. And they, extract greedily from the poor that they're interacting with and can't control their anger and mocketh the poor and reproach their, right? And so I just was looking at verses, right? And so it's like people that are smart, college-educated degrees, and yet there's something missing. And the problem is not that you're dumb. The problem is that you don't have knowledge in your soul. You've acquired information that makes you able to earn a living, make good money, sound like a very smart person, and it's missing something. You have knowledge in your head, but not in your heart. This isn't about technical aptitude. Your soul ought to desire knowledge. And this is a difference between just reading or studying just for, well, what would be an example? What can I give as an example? Let me give you this as an example. I had to take a safety council class today. And it was on confined space entry, right? If you ever go into a confined space. And so you go through it, and safety council classes don't tend to be very hard. They want people to pass them, I think, generally speaking. They're pretty easy to pass. And so I was sitting in there and taking in information for the 19th year in a row, right? Like I got this. And so it was going into my head. I answered some questions, right? Managed to get one of them wrong anyhow. It's like there's 10 questions and I goofed on one of them. Like, come on, Caleb, pull it together, man, right? And so, but you know what? And the knowledge was there, and we could talk about how when you have explosive dust in a confined space, what the OSA limit is before you have to leave the area. It's 5 feet. If you can see 5 feet or more, you can stay in the area. But if you can't see 5 feet, well, then it's considered too high of an explosive limit of explosive dust, wheat, things of that nature. And you're like, what are you talking about? I'm giving y'all knowledge. Now, my guess is, with the exception of a few people in here, I could come back next week and say, what's the OSA limit for how many feet you have to be able to see in a confined space with explosive dust in it? And most of you will probably not be able to tell me 5 feet, right? You're not going to be able, because I'm giving you knowledge that goes into your head, but your soul could not possibly care less. That's the danger of Proverbs. You read all of this stuff, and you can quote it. Does somebody know what Proverbs 20 verse 1 says? Pastor? Approximately. Yeah. Right. Y'all know that one. Proverbs, is it 4, 5, and 6? You know what that one is, Brother Manny? Is that, 3, 5, and 6? Yeah, what is that? Approximately. Like, just give me the gist of it if you can. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. Right, yeah. And I put y'all on the spot like I didn't know this was going to be a test in the middle of that, right? Right. Well, I'm saying is, but my guess is, and I could probably pick out some more. And sometimes you just hear a verse like that sounds like Proverbs, right? Just because of the content. So you're familiar with it, and we'll take the Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. I got the reference. Or like 4, 5, and 6. I don't know what 4, 5. Right. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. I look around. It's a room full of people that likely knows that verse. You have it in here. But do you have it in here? This is where it says that the soul be without knowledge. It is not good. I can quote the verse, but I can't live it in my life. And really, when it comes down to it, it doesn't mean anything. And think about how. What time is it? Oh, yeah. Think about how pointless that type of information is. You ever fretted and had anxiety about something, not sure how something was going to turn out, knowing what Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 said? And this is how useless knowledge is. Somebody that loves you, that cares about you, sees that your anxiety, could come up and say, you know what the Bible says? And most of us, if we're not really keyed in on being spiritual, be like, how about you not quote any Bible to me right now, right? And then they start saying, trust in the Lord with all thine heart. And you're like, I know. Lean not into thy own understanding. I'm not. In all thy ways acknowledge him. I am. And he shall direct thy paths. Well, it doesn't seem like he is, right? And so it's like you have all of the knowledge. The knowledge can be given to you, and it's not doing anything on the inside. That, the Bible says, is not good. Our desire is not to memorize the Bible. I'm not trying, y'all know what I think about this. The desire is to inhabit the Bible. I want this to affect my life. Just real quickly at the end of verse 2 before we move on, says, it is not good, and he that hasteth with his feet sinneth. I think here's the way that I can put this in the same context with the beginning of verse number 2 is, oh man, I had some other stuff to talk about there, but we have to move on. But it is, let me not move on that much, right? So knowledge ought to slow us down. And this is what I mean by that. It says, it talks about having knowledge, and he that hasteth with his feet sinneth. I think knowledge ought to slow us down, because one thing knowledge can do is the more knowledge you get, the more it ought to reveal to you how much knowledge you lack. Does that make sense? And so it ought to, what the term would be, pump our brakes a little bit, right? It's like, I know a lot of things, I know a lot of this, I know a lot of that, but the more I know, the more I realize that I don't know hardly anything. And so that ought to make us slow down just a little bit. I think that's the way I would tie it to the beginning of verse number 2. If you just wanted to take it, this, straight up face value, he that hasteth with his feet sinneth. It says that you shouldn't run marathons. I don't really think that's the point that we're taking away from this. I do think it ties back to that. Look at verse number 3. I think carrying this idea forward. The foolishness of man perverteth his way, and his heart fretteth against the Lord. So I want to try to tie these verses together just a little bit. I want us to see some connections here. So in verse 1, it talks about he that is perverse in his lips. It uses that word perverse. Verse 2, we know is connected to verse 1 because it uses the term also. And then I think when we get to verse number 3, it instantly starts talking about the foolishness of man perverteth his ways. I feel like there's a connection here. There's some of the same words being used. Again, I don't know that it matters, like the content is what it is, but I think that we're tying together a greater thought. The foolishness of man perverteth his ways. Let me make sure we're reading that rightly for this context. It does not say a foolish man. Let me make sure I'm going to say this right. It doesn't say a foolish man is perverted. It says just being foolish perverts the ways. And what I'm saying is, it's not as if the foolish man says, today I'm going to be perverse in my ways. Today I'm going to be perverted. There may be some of that, but I don't think that that's the general way that people live their life. And really the point here is foolishness has an unintended consequence, an unintended effect. The foolishness of man perverts his ways. It's not that foolish people get up and say, I want to have my way perverted. I'm looking for a perverted way. There is no doubt some of that, the scorner, the mocker. I'm not discounting that completely, but there's also an effect of just being foolish brings perverseness into your life accidentally. Now, it's on purpose in that you should have known better, but I mean, have you ever done something and you knew it was going to go bad? It went bad as expected. That's called foolishness bringing perverseness into your life, right? You knew it and you did it anyhow. Really, there's a sense in which I think very limited to the context of what we're talking about this now. Most of the time, people aren't dumb on purpose. And what I mean by that is like, we don't know the people I know. No, but seriously, stay with me here. There's a very real sense in which, what is it? It's in Proverbs. Y'all know this verse too. There is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death or destruction. So what my point here is that most people think they're doing good, think they're doing right, think they're making the right decisions. It's the whole idea of, you've heard yourself say it, you've heard other people say it, well, it made sense at the time, right? It's like when I was standing there before it, I thought that this was good. Now, looking back, hindsight, 2020, all that, yeah, I realized it brought perverseness and foolishness into my life. Listen, and say, well, how do I know if this is talking about me or affecting me? Well, if your life, your way, your circumstances are perverted, and I'm not, we can take this word perverted and go to an instant specific conclusion. I think it's a broader word than that. This idea of crooked, messed up, not the way it ought to be. If that describes kind of your life, it's because you're foolish. Foolishness brings those type of things into your life. And then it gets worse. The foolishness of man perverteth his ways, and his heart fretteth against his own foolishness. No, his heart fretteth against the Lord. This is not a good scenario we find ourselves in. You can be so foolish, your way so messed up, you turn to God and be like, why is this happening to me? You get upset with God. You say, well, I love God. We'll just take everybody at face value. Everybody loves God, right? That's what everybody says. I mean, I've never once heard anybody say, I hate God. I know there are people out there that no doubt do, but generally speaking, everybody loves God. And I try to do what's right. I try to be a good person. I've never killed nobody, right? You know how the line goes and setting the bar. Why am I having all these troubles? I don't have no money, might have a hard life, bad relationship. I would say, let me tell you this right now. Never do anything against the Lord. You said, fretteth against the Lord, this against the Lord. That's a bad idea in general. What is this word? And a few things before we move to the word fretting. It says, his heart fretteth. So this is something you can really do without ever saying it out loud to anybody. Listen, you can sit in church day after day, service after service, sing the songs, put your money in the offering plate, and your heart be fretting against the Lord because of the problems in your own life. Because you're like, if you ever look at God and start to fret against him, the unspoken reality behind it is, I deserve better than this. And God could make it better, and he's choosing not to, and you're fretting against it. What does the word fret mean? So if I just asked you what it means to fret, I think most of us would go to this worried anxiety, and that's probably captured in it at some point. But if you look up, especially the Hebrew word that this came from, it's really kind of a different definition, and it's this: to chafe, to fume, rage, be irritated, or burn with inward anger. So it's not like I'm worried, it's I'm angry, I'm upset. And doesn't that just sound like us humans? We mess our entire life up. We mess it up. We make bad decisions. We make bad money decisions, bad relationship decisions, bad choices, all the bad stuff, and then go to God and say, why did you let all these bad things happen to me? That's what we can tend to do that. You mess your life up and then get mad at God. This is really what this verse is saying. My foolishness perverted my way, did it, right? Made it crooked, made it messed up, took me out of the way I was supposed to be. My foolishness did that. And then I turn around to God and say, why did you let this happen? It's stay with me here. It's because I'm saying this in a very specific context that you'll never hear me say it in other contexts. When you look upward instead of inward, when you have problems, that is the problem. Let me say that again. When you look upward instead of inward, again, this is a narrow context. I'm not talking about in general, but when you look upward, trying to figure out why you're having problems instead of inward as to why I'm having problems, that is the problem. And the fact is that you think it is God, some cosmic influence in your life messing you up than the fact that you spent all your money before your rent was due. That's not God's fault. That's your fault. Where are we at? Verse number 4. We got to move on. Verse number 4. We've looked at the specificity of poverty. It's better to be poor and have some integrity. It's not good how we get our thing. Look at verse number 4. Wealth maketh many friends, but the poor is separated from his neighbor. Again, it's not an instruction on how to have life. It's more an observation on how life tends to be. Think about it. Rich people have people. Again, plus or minus, I can think there's some give and take, but just in general, they have people. Poor people are on their own. You know why you find people a lot of times that are homeless? Just stay with my train of thought. That can be homeless and not have anywhere to live and everything. Poor, genuinely poor. I'm not even saying whose fault it was the decision. I'm just saying that you realize that they're only there because somebody probably quit helping them, right? For whatever reason, legitimate, justified. I'm just saying they got poor and somebody decided to quit helping them out, aiding and abetting. I'm not even arguing that, but it's there. And just think about it. Wealth maketh many friends. I would ask the question, what kind of friends does it make? I would say they can be of tenuous quality at best. I think that's a very legitimate reality, possibly. The poor, nobody wants to have anything to do with poor people. I was thinking, just being poor. I'm like, well, what is it? What is poor, right? And I was talking to one of the old guys at work. Man, I don't know. He's probably in his late 70s or whatever. He was talking about how his grandma would have been his grandma, had 21 kids, 18 of which survived to adulthood and everything. And he's talking about what his grandpa did for a living, working on a farm there in Louisiana. And he said, they had everything. And he said, he grew up right there. He said, we had everything. And he said, looking back, I suppose we were poor and didn't feel like it. And so I've thought about that. What is poor anyhow? And, but however poor or not poor that you think you are, I was just thinking about it. Everybody knows who Elon Musk is, right? We're not going to talk about anything about this one specific part of him. You realize he don't break down on the side of the road, probably. Raise your hand if you ever broke down on the side of the road. You look back behind you and there's smoke coming out and smelling weird smells and losing power and you're just like, I guess we'll pull over here since it quit on me. I remember one time, what did we do? I think it was Homer's fault. Yeah, you can leave that on the recording too. I'll stand by it. We ended up pulling the dash out on a car I used to have, replacing a bunch of stuff in the AC. I think we forgot to hook up a ground cable or tightly on the outside of it, and it started on fire like the next day, right? And coming down 4th Street here, and I was like, there's a very distinctive smell of burning electrical stuff, right? So it didn't end up, I just replaced a few little things. It wasn't that big of a deal. But it's like I got out and touched the hood. I'm like, that ain't from the motor being hot, boys, right? I said, right, broke down there. I broke down a couple of times, but I look around and I think most of y'all have broke down a couple of times too. Just sit there on the side of the road. Even I'm like, last time I broke down my Mustang, I ran the wheels off of it. It was on the side of 2004, and I pulled over. I said, I make too much money to be sitting down here. I'm broke down on the side of the road. This is horrible, right? Nobody in the world would answer their phone. I got 17 coworkers coming down 2004, and not a one of them would answer their phone that day, right? And I was like, I bet Elon Musk never breaks down. Rich people have people. Poor is separated from his neighbor. Just think, if you called your neighbor, Maybe you even have all your neighbors' phone numbers. If you had them, I think we have most of our neighbors' phone numbers. And I like most of our neighbors, right? I like our neighbors and everything. A couple of really good people, some of them, right? And get along with them. Know some of them for 20 years at this point, right? Lived across the street from them. But, my first phone call when I have an issue is not my neighbor, right? I try to generally handle my issue. I'd rather call and pay a tow truck than have to call my dad at this point and ask for help on the side of the road, right? I'll pay the tow truck, right? In fact, I'll just talk about it in 3 months in a sermon illustration, right? Right? So, but you know what? Neighbors don't want to help. Neighbors don't want to help because the reality is most people are your friends as long as you'll do stuff for them. That's pretty much what it's saying. The poorer you are, the less you're going to help. It wouldn't really do any good for you to go exchange all your phone numbers with all your neighbors. Anyhow, you're all poor when it comes down to it, right? Like somebody call out, people go on a trip, Brother Jeremy driving to Colorado. Let me know if you have trouble. Don't really know what I'm going to do if you're in Colorado, but I'll think about your thoughts and prayers, right? Send them that way. But you know what? If somebody calls me 1,000 miles away and say they're broke down, I'm pretty limited on what I can do. Do you not have any money? What do you want me to tell you, right? Like I'm poor, you're poor. We're just gonna have to work this out. That's the way poor people are. The reality is money's not everything, is what it comes down to. We need to kind of separate ourselves from that. Look at verse number 5. Look at verse number 5. We see the first observation. That'll make sense here in a minute when we get to a verse. I think in verse number 9, verse number 5. A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall not escape. I just thought of a few verses. A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall not escape. The verse, be sure your sin will find you out. The verse, the wicked flee when no man pursueth. You ever done something, don't think you got caught, but you're worried that you got caught or going to get caught? In Proverbs, the verse, the curse causeless does not come. What's most interesting is Pastor's been preaching through Job, and I was thinking about it. This has been my general case, in 99% of all the issues I've ever had in life. Something bad happened to me, I know exactly why this is happening, right? I'm not having to sit for 7 days trying to figure this one out, right? I could almost always, not all the time, but I could quite often draw a direct link from something bad happening to something stupid I did, right? Not all the time, but enough of the time to where I could say it pretty authoritatively, right? And really, it just you ain't getting away with nothing. You're not going to get away with nothing. A false witness shall not be unpunished. He that speaketh lies shall not escape. And you'll probably be looking for an escape at some reason. It's not going to happen. You're going to be punished. And it's really this. Bad things happen to you because you do bad things, right? It's not, just as a general rule, it's not much more complicated than that. Kind of, to give you an illustration, you have a motor on your car, you're supposed to change the oil. Man, sometimes you see stuff like, don't have to change your oil. Somebody told me they saw a car that says the oil is good for the life of the vehicle. I'm like, well, yeah, it is, but you don't understand what that means, though, right? If you want 30,000 miles out of right, so you're supposed to change your oil. So you don't change the oil. You know what's going to eventually happen? I don't know. It'll probably take a long time, probably 50, 60,000 miles from brand new, no oil. It's going to probably lock up on you, throw a rod. We call that aerating the crankcase, right? We're gonna do that. And you can say, my motor locked up because I have bad luck. No, your motor locked up because you didn't change your oil, right? And all I'm saying is, generally speaking, when you're experiencing the punishment, when you're not being able to escape, you know why, and you deserve it. And God is saying, you're going to get what you deserve in your life. A false witness, he's speaking directly to saying things that are not true. A false witness, it's just saying things, that bearing witness and talking about things and knowing it's not accurate. I mentioned it several times, watched police body cams, and I don't know, it's some wreck or something, and some cop on the side of the road told a lady to hold her right hand up and said, you swear to sell everything you're about to say is the whole truth and nothing but the truth. I said, I don't think they do that on the side of the road. I'd be like, I don't think that's going to hold up in a court of law, right? But he went to her, right? And she's like, oh, absolutely. The complete lied for 5 minutes straight, right? And the thing is, you know what? You can do that. You're going to get caught eventually. Speaketh lies shall not be unpunished, and shall not escape, and you shouldn't escape. Don't you all? Isn't it you that I've always heard say, I hope they get what they deserve? right. Well, you realize you're going to get what you deserve too, right? I am much more concerned with me getting what I deserve than everybody else that ain't getting what they deserve. Because really, when it comes down to it, we deserve false witness shall not be unpunished. Let's move to verse 6 and 7. Try to get more than 5 verses tonight. Verses 6 and 7, the wealth of wealth. Just read it with me. Kind of going back to this money issue. All the brethren, verse number 6. Many will entreat the favor of a prince, and every man is a friend to him that giveth gifts. All the brethren of the poor do hate him. How much more do his friends go far from him? He pursueth them with words, yet they are wanting to him. Many will entreat the favor of a prince, and every man is a friend to him that giveth gifts. We entreat the favor of a prince. You know what? You could entreat my favor, right? I wouldn't really recommend it because I'm pulling from a pretty finite well, right? I help people out as much as I can. But you know what? You need a prince in your life is what you need, right? You need to, people do this. They find people with things. And I would say that there's a sense in which this verse is telling us you can absolutely buy friendship. If you got enough money, people will be your friends, and good ones as long as you're willing to buy it, right? As long as you're making payments. Now, I would argue on one level, they're not real friends. I understand all that 100%, but they'll fake it really good for a really long time as long as they're getting things out of you. And honestly, a lot of times it's not very expensive. Like if you just bring me like tacos and kolaches at work once or twice a week, I'll be a pretty good friend to you, right? We will be buddies, right? It's not that hard to do. It says it will entreat the favor of a prince. And basically it's saying you're going to go up and you want people that have power, ability, money. You want those people on your side. Listen, this isn't, again, a statement of observation, a statement of instruction. He's saying this is what happens in life. People are trying to do it. It says every man is a friend to him that giveth gifts. That's why, you know what? Everybody loves Santa Claus, right? I know he's not real. I'm making the observation. I've never heard anybody say a single bad thing about Santa Claus in my entire life. I've heard people say bad things about Mother Teresa, right? I've heard bad people say things about just about everybody in the world but Santa Claus. And I would say that there's a sense in which it proves this. Because, and again, I'm being slightly facetious here, but all I'm saying is that mentality, it buys people. It pulls people in. It's one thing if we're talking about a 6-year-old with Santa Claus, but we have to be careful about this in our lives. Listen, people will try to buy your friendship at times. And it won't necessarily be with Lamborghinis and $1 million houses. Because the thing is that you ain't that expensive. It won't take that much to buy your friendship. I've been in church long enough to see people trying to buy friendships and alliances and people in church, and it don't take that much oftentimes. So I would never sell out for that. You'd probably sell out for 50 cents and a Dr. Pepper most of the time, right? It's just not, our standards tend to be pretty low in our life. Everybody will be a friend to you. Every man is a friend to him that giveth gifts. And I was thinking about this. Let me give it a little bit of context before we move to verse number 7. For the right amount of money, we'd probably do just about anything. Probably we'd be embarrassed of what we would. It's easy to point at politicians. I think, I can't prove this, I'm just giving you a political opinion. I think everybody that gets elected to Washington, somebody goes and opens up a whole bag of money and says, do what we say and it's all yours on some level. Maybe not quite that unsmooth, but generally speaking. And it's hard for most people to turn that kind of stuff down. It'd be hard for you to turn it down. What does verse number 7 say? All the brethren of the poor do hate him, and how much more do his friends go far from him? He pursueth them with words, yet they are wanting to him. You say, listen, it's hard to be poor. There's difficulties associated with it. I would couch it with this right here, is that to the best of your ability, and I would say all you got to do is pretty much just get up and go to work every day and do a good job and keep your mouth closed, and you're going to solve a lot of these issues in your life. But if you find yourself poor, you really should ask yourself the question, not why are there billionaires in the world, but am I doing what I can do in my own life where I'm at right here, right now, to better myself in this area? Being poor, let me say it like this. Being poor is no great character quality, and being rich is not a character flaw, right? Being stingy and greedy, that's one thing, but just because you have money doesn't automatically make you to be bad. I really feel like these two verses here are telling us the world really runs on relationships. That's the way most of the world works. It says If you don't have anything to offer the world, your own brothers and sisters won't want to have anything to do with you. I'm not arguing that it's right, but I'm just arguing there's some validity to it. Command, again, I think not a command, but rather an observation. The brethren of the poor do hate him. He pursueth them with words they're wanting to him. Let me give you an example of how money definitely opens doors to you. Call your bank tomorrow and see how long the hold time is. Just see how long your hold time is. Say, and you know what's bad where they're like, we'll take your phone number and call you back later, but don't worry, you won't lose your place in line. I don't ever believe that, but right? Do you think that Jeff Bezos sits on hold at a bank when he calls? You think rich people sit in doctor's offices an hour past their appointment time? No, they buy their own doctors. Come to their house. Their doctor sits in the room. You have enough money, the doctor will sit in the room for you for an hour, wait for you to... what I'm saying here is money brings these type of access to you. Let me give you two takeaways from this. Or maybe just one here, is be careful what money can do to you. Because I think the concern is, well, man, if I had $1 billion, I probably wouldn't be a very nice person. I probably wouldn't take $1 billion to make most of us not who we ought to be. Wouldn't take very much at all, because think of how not great you can tend to be with your little bit that God has given you here. Friendships are based upon mutual give and take. It's really, again, just a statement of fact here. All the bread of the poor do hate him, and how much more do his friends go far from him? Pursueth them with words that they are wanting to him. Listen, it matters the type of access that you're going to have in your life. What time is it? Yeah, we're going to probably wrap up there. I got quite a bit about verse 8. But let me just kind of clue you in. So in verse number 2, it talks about the soul being without knowledge is not good. In verse number 8, it says, he that getteth wisdom loveth his own soul. He that keepeth understanding shall find good. So I find a contrast that we're going to dig in to next week. I appreciate your attention. You can stand with me. Hopefully